before the lunch, we covered quite a lot of critical infrastructure. So we had airports, we had harbors, ports. What do we miss? We're missing railway, and that's the topic for the next panel. We're going to discuss future railway mobile communication systems, bringing 5G, taking care of cybersecurity, what are the challenges, and how to overcome. I would like to welcome my panelists and moderator, Dirts Bramans. As you can tell, they came really on time. I guess that's in the railway blood. So, over to you.
Good, thank you. I will not elaborate sort of which we are missing. We are missing the best one, namely the railways. But let's not go into that discussion, yet at least. But firstly, indeed, I would like to truly thank the 5G Techritory organizers for the cooperation, and also it's an honor to host a rail dedicated panel today. And here, of course, I have to say that rail is and there's various shades or let's say understandings, but rail is the new black. Yeah, climate friendly, efficient, safe, and sustainable. At the same time, even the rail sector is taking further steps before we actually take a significant technological leap into the digital future. Even more increasing the efficiency, punctuality, that's what we saw already, and capacity, but through that also the connectivity between people, businesses, places, and nations. And when speaking of future rail, ERTMS, the European Rail Traffic Monitoring System, is the buzzword and is linked with transition from GSMR to FRMCS, the Future Railway Mobile Communication System, with target date of 2030. Partners at global and EU level, together with the sector and with direct engagement of the sector, are working intensively to get the new standards in place. As for Rail Baltica, the unique 870-kilometer fully electrified greenfield mega project in the Baltic states, bridging the missing link, with significant financial contribution and financing coming also from the Connecting Europe facility, together with the financing from the 3 Baltic countries. The first construction works are well advancing, and preparations for large-scale main construction phase are taking place. In addition to these civil works, work on railway systems has progressed significantly over the last year. For example, we have launched, and that's a procurement that is already ongoing, a huge electrification subsystem design and build procurement that will cover the whole 870 kilometers of the line in the 3 Baltic countries. And same also preparation for the control command signaling. That's, let's say, a particular link with the discussion of today. The preparations are entering their finalization phase before the procurement is launched. Following the 24th February and Russia's aggression on Ukraine, without doubt, the importance of and strategic importance of Rail Baltica has only increased, and therefore we are discussing Rail Baltic not only as setting a basis for economic corridor, but also as a basis for security corridor. That, while implemented in phases, has to be put in place until 2030, namely the cross-border corridor connecting the 3 Baltic countries with the rest of the railway network. Today, I'm truly happy to meet in person, and we have had some preparatory calls, but today in person, finally, after several years of hybrids or online only, but today in person, 4 excellent panelists, true professionals on the matter. And just to recall that the aim of this panel is actually to look where we are with the developments in this sector, in the region, but also beyond. And based on the discussions that we have had in the preparatory calls, I understand that these 40 minutes will be just sort of a nice starter. But I hope and count that there's definitely something to be taken with you, also the participants, both in this hall, but also online. And therefore, I would now like to give floor for a short introduction on who you are and what you do. And let's start with Andy Billington, my partner in crime, at least in Rail Baltic project.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the partner in crime thing. Yeah, we'll work on it. So my role is innovation and digital architecture. So with that in mind, I work within the IT team, within the signaling team within CCS, and looking at not just 5G, but other communications options. What is FRMCS? What is the migration path? What is GSMR? And why does it still exist? No, more seriously. GSMR is obviously an evolution, a railway-specific version of GSM that is for the rail sector and is likely to be end of life in 2030. So this panel is here to discuss what comes next.
Good, thank you. Welcome on the panel. Juha Lehtola from the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency, and as I heard, you're the MES guru in Finland. Juha?
Thank you. So the pressure is on. Let's
Yeah.
say. So, yeah. So I bring the, let's say, the Nordic-Baltic cooperation here also to this room, and especially from Finland. So it's very, very nice to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Yeah, in Finland. So I have been working with, as you mentioned, for the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency, which is very complicated, but it is the railway infra manager in Finland. We are at the moment planning our ERTM, let's say nationwide ERTMS development, and I'm looking after it. Simultaneously, or with that project, we realized that, okay, it's not only about ERTMS, it must be something more. So we started to talk about digitalization, and that was maybe spot on 3.5 years ago. People were not discussing so much about digitalization of railways that day. Nowadays, it's everywhere. Everybody is talking about it. So that was really, that's really nice to see also. Okay, FRMCS today is maybe a hot topic. We are looking at it from a little bit different angle in Finland, and we really would like the whole Europe to look to future and not bringing the 150 years of history to FRMCS. So that's my main message today. So, well, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Can I just make one quick point?
We already jump in the discussion. Sort of
Calm
down, Andy.
2030 is end of life for GSMR.
Yeah.
15th of September 2030 is 200 years since the first intercity railway in the world opened.
Sounds like a party. But Slavomir Sarna from the Solidarity Transport Hub, a project in Poland, and then throughout this year, I would say, and I'm happy to see that our cooperation between Rail Baltica and the Solidarity Transport Hub has extended, or let's say, significantly, on several aspects. But let's say,
hello, my name is Sławomir, and I'm a network and installation telecommunication designer in CPK, so it's central solidarity hub in Poland. We will build almost 2,000 new high-speed lines in Poland, which will be connected with existing network, railways network. We build new connections to our neighbors, to the Czech Republic and to the Slovakia. So we have a lot of work and tight schedules. So FRMCS was the first thing what we plan to implement, but for now we have to go a little bit back and use for the first line GSMR.
good. Let's come back to that also
Yes,
a little
okay.
bit in more details.
And I want to thank you for invitation. I'm proud to take a part of this panel.
Pleasure is all ours.
Thank
And last but definitely not least, Urmas Ruto from the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence located in Estonia.
Yes, coming from Tallinn, and center CCD3 is dealing mainly with research, training and exercises, and as part of all these three domains, 5G and critical infrastructure, including railways, have been part of for several years now. And before that, was working for one of the telecom vendors. I could say low-risk vendor, I believe. And this is where I come or get my 5G knowledge as well, and the work we do at the center. So happy to be here.
Great. So we previously discussed that this we will not elaborate women in rail topic in this panel, but at the same time truly an excellent team of panelists. And then let's proceed with the more detailed questions that hopefully kick off some thinking and then also discussion. There's one on dedicated to Andy, yeah, and still on Rail Baltic specific, yeah, and of course Rail Baltic and 5G. Implementing schedule, plans, how the global industry and the standardization process, is it catching up? And ultimately, and I think that was already a point that pops up, FRMCS for Rail Baltica, is that the only choice?
It's the only logical choice. It's not the only choice, but it's the only logical one. So we are likely to be having services starting in phases, as you said, over 2027 to 2030. And GSMR, according to the supply chain, is end of life 2030. There is quite a lot of pressure to try and extend that a bit. But if we were to deploy GSMR, we'd be deploying a telecom system knowing we were going to have to rip and replace within 10 years. And that's just not viable. I mean, financially, that's just, it's really tough to make that business case. And the technology is moving on. I mean, GSMR, I think, was standardized in 1999.
Maybe
earlier. Might even be earlier, yeah. And from a cybersecurity point of view, no, don't go there. Let's not get into what the vulnerabilities are in an open forum, but they exist, and they're known. So I think for us, the only logical view is FRMCS, and we have to future-proof. We have to look at. So before I worked in rail, I worked in IT, as you know. If you talk to people in the IT industry about what's a long-term project, they'll say 2 years, maybe 3 years. If you talk to people in rail, what's a long-term project? 50 years. The mindset is just completely different. And we have to find a balance. We have to be somewhere between the two. So I think you and I were discussing earlier on, the innovation cycle in rail is going to have to accelerate. It's going to have to become closer to the IT industry in terms of software and agile development. It'll never be the same because safety critical systems are never going to be evolved at the same speed as Netflix. I mean, it just won't happen. It can't happen. But there needs to be somewhere in the middle.
Good. Thank you. Proceeding with Juha, and here building on what Andy just mentioned on coming closer with the industry, I would say. Yeah, and here we are discussing several options how to deploy 5G across or for railways. Yeah, one I know that on Rail Baltica we are discussing or planning rail dedicated infrastructure and network. In Finland, you are proceeding with another option, yeah, where you build on, and I will leave for you to elaborate on that, where you build on the existing infrastructure and the mobile networks and also operators. So can you please elaborate on this, on your chosen scenario, and also what are the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, so we have actually noticed that it for Finland it doesn't make any sense to start building up our own dedicated network for the railways. We have excellent coverage already with the public mobile network operators, and we have a very good connection between, for example, our member state, our safety authority and infra managers, and then the mobile network operators. So we have very good collaboration there, and so we have chosen to go with that. So we are looking at buying the radio network as a service from our commercial operators. So that's something that we see that is the possible solution for Finland. Of course, we understand that it's not maybe the best possible solution for whole Europe. But there we come to standardization, for example, what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So we see that the standardization should leave possibilities open for member states to choose from, and not to close down for some specific technology. Because Andy mentioned, for example, future-proof. And today I was listening about metaverse and I started sweating because I realized that, okay, railways, we are talking about digitalization, but other people, they already went past digitalization, they are talking about metaverse and these kind of things, and I didn't even understand what it is. So I was thinking that, okay, we really, really need to be much faster and much more agile. So looking into technological solutions where we can be future-proof and let the telecoms, for example, evolve as it evolves, and then the signaling stuff, so the safety-related systems that Andy was mentioning, let them be there for 20 years as they are, but let's not say so that all the railway systems must be so. Let's keep the let's say world open for involvement. Yeah, so that's what we are targeting with the bearer independency. I must say it now. Bearer independency is the key word. That's what we want to see in the standards also, that the member states are able to choose how they want to manage or how they want to set up the carrier for the radio network.
So, elaborating just a little bit on this one, and I know, and I noted the bearer independence, and also the standardization. So, do you see a concern that standardization is a must for some elements, but it could expand too much?
No, it's vital to standardize things and make the, let's say, the rules and everything, but it must be much more agile also, the standardization phase. It cannot be so that now we write down a standard and then we'll be happy for the next 7 years. It's impossible in the today's world. So yeah, and now how it looks like at the moment is that the standards are made as they were made 20 years ago. So looking at very rigid solutions for next 10 years or so, but we would like to see them evolving also, the standards, and leaving doors open for new technologies also.
Good, thank you. Let's proceed with Slavomir, and also on this future-proofing, and without doubt, the project that you represent, I think, is definitely one in that direction. But can you elaborate a little bit more? And you mentioned the GSMR as potentially the first phase. So what are the plans for within the Solidarity Transport Hub project, but also together with the Polish railways, for example, yeah, for the rest of Polish network? And yes.
Yes, as I said, we planned to implemented the FRMCS from the beginning. But as you have said, standardization is not complete. We need something what is possible to take from the shelf. In Poland, we have built GSMR network and is accessible. So for the first step, we plan to use this for the first line, which is planned to commission in 2027. So for this, we will use GSMR network, and then in the future, in the next steps, we plan to provide FRMCS in Poland. But as you said, our new lines are only 2,000 from 20,000 of kilometers of railway lines in Poland. So we need to cooperate with Polish railways and rollout of GSMR and swap to FRMCS must be done from the whole country. So this is a big project and needs many works to do, and this is very complicated, but I think we will done it about 2030. Also, we made talks with our southern neighbors in this case, but they also planned it in long term, so over the 2030. So this is our plan for MSAs for now.
And that was indeed, you mentioned the southern partners, and I just wanted to also add up here, and one part is that you are focusing on is Poland. But I know that you are also discussing, for example, with the Czech Republic, the Slovaks, and then also Hungary. How does that, the planning of the corridor, what's the progress there? Because without doubt, I have to say, from Rail Baltic side, one part is that we know that cooperation between several countries is, let's say, sparkling. But secondly, of course, this corridor perspective increases the value of the ultimate end result.
Yeah. No, our goal is that you can ride the train from Tallinn to Rome without any obstacles. Yeah, no system changes. So this interoperability is the clue. Yeah, but as I said, for now we made talks with our neighbors. I can't say anything specific for now. This is ongoing topic.
Okay, thank you. And then Urmas, without doubt, I think that the world and also the region that we work in has changed significantly as of February. And we are discussing lots of new opportunities for the users, for passengers, freight, for the operations. But I'm quite sure that also the risks are there. From the NATO side, how do you see the involvement of the railway systems, and perhaps what action should be taken for the users to be absolutely sure that it's not just sort of fantastic product or some nice service, but it's also safe and secure?
Yes, so there is many aspects we can touch actually, and first of all, of course, just a general statement like coming from GSMR to 5G, so we have skipped like 3 generations, so there has been a huge security improvement already happened. Then when Finland has basically decided that they will use commercial operators for future communication, then definitely in that sense a very good idea, because they have the knowledge, they have done this for decades, the development of the networks, but there is always some buts. So as we look it from the standardization point of view, there is lots of optional features which are mainly related to security features. And then there needs to be like customer demand, in this case railways, who is then putting this demand towards mobile operators that yes, please implement those security features, or at least for their use case. And when it comes to also from the NATO and this military world, then if you look at from some of the projects which are ongoing, deploying or developing tactical 5G networks, for example, then these guys, military guys, are saying that okay, they don't want to basically look below 5G at all, because at least 5G from their perspective is kind of like a first G, where it is some kind of decent security mechanism already in place, and on top of that you can of course build additional security layers if needed. So yeah, and then obviously the 5G as such is giving us quite a good flexibility, I believe, also decouple very important information, which is basically the control signals, with from important information, which is maybe like communicating with train, and then there is less important information, which is maybe, I don't know, entertaining the passengers. And I believe 5G has all these quality assuring mechanisms in place, which can actually allow that one. So I'm very optimistic that when one day it will be in place, it's a huge quality jump, and also from the security point of view.
Good to hear that. But colleagues, still, yeah, and I'm far from an expert on 5G and all these good things, and when we discuss FRMCS, and I understand that on security, it's sort of it's definitely a leap in also in the security levels. But when we discuss FRMCS, yeah, that's also the short term of this panel. Is it just 5G?
No.
And perhaps you could elaborate shortly on this one.
I think as Juha mentioned, bearer independence is a key element. So the FRMCS architecture is designed to support any radio network. So it could, in theory, be deployed over 4G, over 5G, over 6G, over Wi-Fi if you really, really wanted to. Why would you? But the other interesting one is the LEO satellites. So you can potentially, if you have like, for example, a very rural area that doesn't justify rolling out a mobile network, you could do satellite instead. You obviously have disruption of service opportunity. If you're using a satellite network, it's slightly easier to interfere with that, especially if you have how should we put it, a noisy neighbor problem. But you can, basically FRMCS is designed to run with any bearer, with any communication network. I think in theory you could actually run it with a wire, but you wouldn't, obviously. But I think that's one of the key points that sometimes isn't stressed enough, is that it's not just 5G. People sometimes use FRMCS and 5G as synonyms, and they're not. You know, FRMCS is an architecture. It's not a protocol. It's a solution design, a blueprint. I think we all share the view that, you know, if you've got that kind of solution design, it's easier to install, it's easier to roll out, it's easier to secure, and it's easier for it to evolve. Like we said, railways, the lifetime of the assets is 50 to 100 years. You need something that can evolve.
Colleagues, something to add? Juha?
Just supporting everything that Andy just said, but and also also looking at Polish situation, where you are in a situation where the standardization is not ready, and you have to go back the 3 generations that Urmas was mentioning with very, very old technology, because there is no standardization available for something that is already available, but you just cannot use it. So that's the same. We definitely don't want to be in a situation in 10 years where we are, or 15 years, where we are replacing the FRMCS developed today, and then we are again in the same situation that there are projects that cannot go forward with the whatever technology is then, because there is standardization for only 5G, for example. But it must be open and really better independent. Yeah.
Yeah, the standards themselves need to evolve as well as the technologies.
Yes.
And yeah, I would just add that depending on the deployment model, of course, that if this commercial operators are used, then basically it's heavily depending what kind of technology they have. So if the 5G core network is already in place, then obviously this will be used, and the base stations can basically anyhow talk 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, doesn't matter which G, just that the frequency needs to be the correct one. And I believe when it will be also deployed, the modems will be deployed on trains, then for sure they will be 5G capable anyhow, or all Gs capable. But also, like, I believe from timing point of view, it will be 4G/5G-ish. Something like that.
I think we have, I mean, there's one issue, which is there is dedicated spectrum available for railways. and the availability of modems for that spectrum will depend on how many railways want to take up this service. But as Emma said, one of the issues with some of the 5G specifications is there are quite a lot of security features which are optional or nice to have. If the railway sector is the only sector that's asking for those features, we run the risk of ending up with another GSMR. We run the risk of having a railway-specific version of a standard. And that's the whole point of FRMCS, was to get away from having a railway-specific version of a telecoms network, which, because it's railway-specific, only had, I think there were maybe 2 suppliers left. Let's not do that again. If the security feature is good enough that it's interesting for the railways, it should be interesting for road. It should be interesting for maritime. It should be interesting, maybe not aviation, but electricity grids, for other critical infrastructure. And hopefully that will be fed into the standards process as well.
Good. I think that also clarified. And I think it goes together with the railway sector being quite an interesting, I have to say, animal. It's both super progressive, or future-looking, at the same time quite conservative, or let's say taking very practical steps to get the standards in place. Even when the standards are written, there's the testing phases, etc. Right? But now switching a little bit to the future users' perspective, and here perhaps from your perspective as professionals, but also in the field that you work, with the 5G deployment, and FRMCS coming into place, in railway sector, from all the services that are there and the potential benefits for the passengers, for the freight, for the operations, what would be your top one that you would see, not only requiring to keep an eye on, but also acting as a true game changer, I would say?
For me, it will be A2 over FRMCS. Yes, this is the way where all types of transport are going. Autonomy transport is the future, and this is the goal, the main for me.
And also the Solidarity Transport Hub project includes not only railways, right?
Yes.
Are you looking at the multimodal solutions?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, but multimodal solutions is not in my part of works. So only for the railways, and that's all. My colleague is, which is also on this in this room, is involved in this part of our works.
Good.
Yeah. So once Rail Baltica is in place, so I hope that there will be no usage from that perspective that we need to move some military equipment from Europe to Estonia or Latvia, Lithuania. But in case it is needed, then definitely, if the commercial version will be not used, but there will be some kind of dedicated network, then as long as I understand, today there is no, like, if you do some kind of private network, there is no regulation in place. So basically, if one country is deciding that, okay, the railway solution will be dedicated solution, then this operator who will be then building and operating it can basically choose also a high-risk vendor, for example, if they would like to do that. So in that sense, from military point of view, all the infrastructure which is basically connected somehow with military movement, for us it is very important to have the secure and so that not so much information is actually leaking to our neighbors. So this is
good point. Juha?
Yeah, I think I'm always talking about that. Let's not make this for the railway engineers, but let's make this for the end users.
Yeah.
So for the passengers and for the industry who gives, let's say, needs the transportation from the railways. Let's make this very, very good for them, and let's all try to increase the share of railway transportation. Let's say railways mode of transportation. I think FRMCS is a key enabler there. We are hearing from the EU or this Green Deal and Fit for 55 and everything. This is very, very important, and I think the momentum is now for the railways with the FRMCS and digitalization and maybe with metaverse and whatever. But if we don't use this possibility now, there will be electrical planes and electrical cars and everything. So the green solution will maybe not be any more railways. So I think we have the momentum now, and let's not spoil it with
To use the momentum, yeah.
yeah for the end users.
Yeah. Andy,
I think
something on passengers. Think of of me, sort of. What will be the best game-changing service?
there are a lot of things that FRMCS can enable. We've already had ATO, autonomous operation. So you can do things like slow the train down to keep to the timetable, but to save energy as well. So you can optimize the train speed and reduce the energy that you're using. But you can also, because everything is going to be connected, it will become easier to do things like, what's my estimated time of arrival? So if I've got let's say, for example, you're going on train from here to Tallinn, and then you're getting on a ferry to Finland, and then you're getting a train to Tampere. You want to know, is my train going to be on time? So if you've got the continual tracking of the train in real time, you can start to say, okay, the train in front of me is delayed, I'm going to be delayed, or I reroute, or however that's run. And that kind of, it's just better information for passengers, because whether it's 5G or 6G or whatever, the location technology is better than you've got at the moment, is more reliable than you're typically getting from things like GPS, will be better precision if you can combine it with like Galileo, GNSS, and what you can get off the 5G or 6G networks. You'll get better positioning information, even at 250 kilometers an hour. Because at the moment, let's say, for example, you're driving at 250 kilometers an hour, which I'm sure no one has ever done, how accurate is your GPS location going to be? By the time you've got the location, you've already moved 2 kilometers down the road. You can do that much more accurately with the 5G-based or the 6G-based solutions. So those kind of things, I don't think there's one particular thing that stands out that FRMCS enables which will make life better for passengers. It's a whole combination of things that will make it easier, more efficient, and probably less energy intensive to run the railways. Overall, the whole package comes together, and there's just opportunity for better service. So just to use an example of a journey that I did quite recently, the Crossrail Elizabeth line in London is going from 12 trains an hour to 24 trains an hour. It's a software change. You can't do that kind of thing with GSMR. It's not just software. You're deploying new boxes, whereas with FRMCS, it's software upgrades. So incremental improvements over 10 years, 20 years. You do have cybersecurity issues because it's all software driven. So you have to be very aware of your software supply chain, not just the hardware supply chain. So there's a lot of thinking that needs to happen on that front, and that needs to be built into the standards. And at the moment, the draft standards that we've seen, I think we've all seen, they're not quite there. They're nearly there. They just need a little push.
No, good. So that's potentially something for the next panel, as well as the topic of using the data available, but across the different transport modes and operators, and how ultimately the user can benefit. And I think that one part is what will be technically possible, but then there's also another dimension, sort of commercial dimension. So let's plan another discussion on that. I understand that time-wise we are now in questions in the audience, and I have one from the joint venture colleagues. but indeed, we had a mini survey, and I will kick off, and that's a very short one. Automated trains, yes, no, and 2030, yeah? Deadline, also target date for Rail Baltic to be put in place.
Are you asking, is it theoretically possible? Or are you asking, is it going to be
Perhaps
happening?
I can ask the other colleague.
Thank you.
That was a yes or no question, wasn't it? So
Yes and no, and why?
Yes.
Why?
Why not?
Why not? I think
Wonderful companies.
I think
Jaroslav?
yes, because it's something that we can use for the making better for the end customer. Yes.
Yes.
Hard to argue, right?
I said ATO is very important for me, and you can save energy. Trains move smoothly runs, smoothly brakes, and saving of energy, time, riding on the time. Everything is going to change to sorry.
Smoother and more functional, right?
Yes.
And efficient.
But efficiency is the key. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, yes, please. And in that sense, I agree with what was already said, that of course, I think we shouldn't be afraid that people will lose their job. I think there are plenty of jobs, and I think we are just lacking the people. But the work what can be done by machine should be done by machine. And then if we have very nice connectivity also to trains, then there can be also remote operators that will take over the train if needed. And I hope that it will be not the bad guys who do that.
Good. I think we need some kind of a positive question from the audience. But of course, I understand the importance of the point that you raised. How does it look? Any questions?
Do we have questions? Yes. We need mic. Yes, can it be mic? Because there are people online.
It's on? Yeah. Ole Olsen, Frequentis. Want to ask the rail infra managers what you think about, you were talking a little bit about the future services FRMCS is going to enable. But in the end of the day, I think we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, like with the mobile communication revolution for private markets some years ago. How do you intend to enable this also for the future within rail?
I think we are the two infra managers, I suppose. But anyways, I think interfaces is very important. So we may really need to make safe interfaces from our railway systems and open up the data. So then there is all these buzzwords that we have nowadays: open data and AI and big data usage and all these kind of things, which I'm really not a specialist or anything. I only know these abbreviations, but I really hope that when we make the interfaces safe and we open the data and give access to people, to developers, so there starts to be good ideas how to make the end user life easier in railways. That's how I see it.
If I can add, as somebody who's not from an infra manager, but from their open data point of view, I've been at quite a few events over the last period of time, and the message at all of them has been standards, standards, standards. Publish the data specifications, publish the protocol, and then you'll see what comes. So there were things like, if you've got, if a train detects, or if a train has some sensor on it that detects a fault with the line, then maybe you can automatically dispatch a drone to go and overfly. Or if there's an accident, which everybody tries to minimize, but they do happen, maybe you can get the first responders some live video of what's going on at the scene before they get there. And that kind of integration is going to be easier when you've got more bandwidth to play with. And those kind of, you can do things with video. So let's say, for example, the third car in this freight train is carrying chlorine gas. You can tell the first responders, this is what you're going to have to deal with. Make sure you've got the right equipment with you before they get there. You don't have the first people on site going, oops, we haven't got the right kit. So all that kind of integration should be a lot easier. And like you said, standards. If there is open data, if there's standard formats, if there's known formats that a software developer with a bright idea can just go, oh, hang on, I can do this. If I pull this bit of data from here and that bit of data from there and this thing here, I can put this together and give you this application. Great, let's have that.
Good, thank you. One more.
More questions?
5G Techritory participants. One more for the rail gurus here on the panel. Was there one? No? Yeah.
Hi, Öner from Frequentis. My concern is from the NATO side. They are always saying security. Did you ever run a 5G slice network security analysis? What is your concern over there? Because standard is still evolving, and according to the current EAL 4+5 level is supported over there.
Yeah, so of course very early actually to say something about network slicing, how it will be really implemented in operators' networks. And if, again, the same question that will it be then dedicated network for railways, or is it a commercial operator giving a service? But definitely compared to 4G, where you maybe just define some dedicated APNs for different critical consumers, then of course definitely it is a step forward. So theoretically or even practically, of course, you can even create slices on different hardware so that even the hardwares are isolated. So again, the railway needs to be like a smart consumer or procurer and ask the right questions. But of course, that kind of knowledge is still very limited, that okay, where is this border, what kind of isolation between slices are needed, and so on. So definitely work to be done during the upcoming years.
I think just to add, so FRMCS as an architecture will support multiple radios. So you could have a 5G slice on the commercial spectrum, and you could have a 5G dedicated rail in the railway spectrum, so the 900 megahertz, the 1900 megahertz. So you put the train control systems on the dedicated railway, and you put things like maintenance data, passenger information systems, everything else, CCTV offload or whatever, on the commercial operator slice. So you've got more bandwidth to play with on that side, but you've still got your critical systems isolated. And there were a couple of big or fairly big initiatives in the industry. So there's one called Acora, which is doing onboard reference architectures, and that will support multiple radios. It would support different kinds of radio as well, not just 5G or 6G, but also Wi-Fi. As you're going through a station, can the train just grab hold of the Wi-Fi for a little bit, offload some bulk maintenance data, for example, and then, okay, lost my signal, so what? Yeah, I'll do it, end of mission. And the other one is within EU Rail, there's the whole system pillar work, which is, again, looking at how do you modularize systems? How do you make it so you can plug and play, basically have building blocks, and just swap the radio. As the technology evolves, just change one of the radios, and if that works, then change the other one. So, that kind of it can't be plug and play because you have to go through the interoperability testing and the safety testing. but it can be a lot closer to than what we have today.
Good. So, as promised, ladies and gentlemen, tip of iceberg on railways. But I would like to thank truly Urmas, Slavoslav, and Juha and Andy for joining the panel. And for railways, indeed, it's not only the future of the transportation and connectivity, provided that we use the momentum and ensure it's future-proof, but also for sustainable partnerships. Therefore, thank you very much, and full speed ahead.
Thank you.